So, my name is Carol. I'm very happy to be here today and talking about a topic that is so close to my heart. I've been working in HR for the last 20 years, and since I was a little girl, I knew I wanted to accomplish great things. I wanted to move continents. I wanted to know different careers, different companies. But I also always heard from my mother, you have to study first. And I'm glad I listened to her, most of the time at least, because otherwise I don't think I would be here today. And with that in mind, I had to invest a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money also in a bunch of development opportunities, development offers, because that's how we learn that we would be able to move forward in our careers, to aspire to different roles. If we remember the previous generations, we will have to understand that they all faced financial barriers to even access higher educations. This first picture is my first role model. She's my grandmother. And she managed to raise 8 kids. She was a dressmaker, a very hard worker, but she barely had the primary education. Since then, society has changed so much, and women have become a very important part of our workforce. We are an important part of the economy. We now make decisions. But at that time, education was not a priority. We had to learn how to balance our life, work, education, all these many roles that women are asked to be at when also decided to study. And that second picture is my second role model. That's my mother. So she was managing a manufacturing, 150 employees, leading that group, while trying to be a mother, a wife, taking care of elderly parents, and also to make impact in the society when she was also graduating. And I could see how exhausting that it was for her, because if I look at to the side and I see my dad playing a different role, it almost felt like a very imbalanced relation when we talk about the role that she was doing at work and the same role that he was doing. And finally, our generation, my generation at least, for some of you here, it was when we started to challenge these traditional roles. I knew if I wanted to play these different personas, these different roles, I had to invest the time and the energy to be ready for whenever comes the opportunity. And being aware about how work should be done around it, there was always a decision. So how can we make sure this investment, it's going to be translated in the opportunities of growing in our careers? And that leads us to the glass ceiling. It's this invisible but strongly powerful barriers, unconscious most of the time, that we face in our daily work. It always starts with the unconscious gender bias. So, for instance, if you are in a meeting where both genders are in the room and someone asks, can you take some notes and share with the participants after our day today? Who do you think it's going to volunteer to take these notes? Oh, yes. And why is that? Why it's a woman that usually volunteers to take these notes? Indeed, we learn to accommodate others, and this is also really associated to the fact that tasks are usually associated to an assistant position where majority is a female that holds in. And it also drives us to this imposter syndrome. So females, research shows that females are always, constantly questioning their capabilities. They're enhanced. How can we enhance that power to believe that we're able to do something? Can I also ask yourselves if you know any professional that has doubted herself and didn't even apply for a higher role because she didn't think she was ready? I have done it. I have questioned myself if I was supposed to be here today, even though I've done this a few times, even though I'll work with this topic for a while. Why do we usually question our capabilities? When it's proven that men, even though they don't have or they acknowledge they are not 100% ready for that next position, they would go and apply for the job. They understand that they would have a learning curve and some time to accommodate, and they are happy to receive a no if they're not the ones chosen for the position. So, other than imposter syndrome, we also face a lack of influential mentors, that people who would help you and advocate for your careers moving forward. We often don't look for these role models that can also support us in the organization ladder. And finally, the unequal pay. So, females are not used or as open as to negotiate offers, to negotiate salaries. We usually feel so grateful for being chosen as a finalist in a role in a recruitment process, or even if we receive a promotion. If we think that this is not the salary that we should receive, we are not open to go and question most of the time. Men act differently. If we go a little deeper into the gender gap in HR leadership, we could see that we were majority in the HR structure for a long time. And even though we represent 70% of this HR workforce, we're only 35% of the senior role positions. 40 years later, we were still just 20% of the CHR roles positions, according to 500 Fortune. And in 2015, only 15% of the executives' roles was held by females. But the most impressive for me, it was to see that 2020, that's only 4 years ago, we still hold this immense gender gap disparity according salaries. And of course, a lot of things has changed since then, but that's the reality. So, a study shows that companies with women in leadership roles, they often have more positive results. Look how interesting. 20% more innovation. Women give different perspectives. They enhance the collaborative environment. They challenge the discussions that you have in board members. It also increases productivity. 18% more employee engagement. That seems to be a good deal for organizations, right? I would assume so. And why? we are still underrepresented when we talk about C-suite positions. Why only 23% of the C-suite roles are females? It's interesting because research also shows that women engage to development and leadership much earlier than men, even before they are sitting in a leadership role. Usually, women start to study before men, and they stay studying 30% more after they conclude their first or their second education that they choose. And finally, 60% of females decides to enroll for 1 year or more education opportunities, while men prioritize around 6 months or less education proposals. So, what is missing? I would like to share a few examples that I think are very relevant. The first one is Indra Nooyi. She's the first women trailblazer to be a CEO in a 500 Fortune companies. She was CEO of PepsiCo for 12 years. The second one is Mari Barra. She's the first CEO to hold the position in an automaker company. She was there for 10 years. Angela Merkel, the first female chancellor of Germany, holding the office for 16 years. And finally, Jacinda, which is the youngest female ever to be holding a position in the government. So, what do you think they have in common? Definitely. What else? Indeed, I can agree with that. It's definitely not about the fact that they hold graduations from the most prestigious universities in the world, or they accumulate MBAs, PhDs, masters, executive programs. It's about the way that they manage to leverage these learning opportunities and help them to move forward. Is to use these opportunities as a network environment and to make the right connections, to make themselves being heard. It's about making sure they share their thoughts, even though they don't think they're ready for it. And finally, it's about finding this right person to help them to move forward. It's about finding the support that it's going to really hold their hands into their career path journey. And when I'm talking here is about sponsorship that has been proven the most effective strategy to help women to move forward. And what does that mean? Sponsorship is about holding our leaders accountable for that journey. It's about their commitment to, yes, I understand you have the potential to, and I'm going to support you through that. It's about making sure that projects are provided, are shared, and giving them the opportunity, the visibility to show their skills. And finally, it's about supporting this progress in the C-suite because they're all engaged in creating the opportunities for both men and female. So sponsorship, it's about mentoring. It's about providing that guidance, guaranteeing that you share your thoughts, you share the direction, you share different perspectives so this female can progress. It's about acting as a strategizer. And that's about really sharing the knowledge, sharing maybe inside information that can help these females to continue, to grow, to gain the confidence that they need. It's about being a connector. And sometimes we take it for granted how important it is to know the right people, to take all the opportunities to network, looking forward to creating new ways of working, of sharing, of learning. And finally, it's about advocate. The expectation here is how this group of sponsors can outspokenly say that talent is ready for a next role. We should invest on her. Nevertheless, it's not about a guiding coaching. Sponsorship is not about providing extensive upskillings or even trainings. It's not about creating different guidances about hiring process, and that's definitely not a promotion guarantee. It's a two-way of working, but it should help our organizations and our females to move forward. So when investing in that female opportunities around the sponsorship, it's been proven that investing in our education, it can give us so many benefits. And it always starts about the skill sets that we don't have or we don't have as much associated to our career when considered starting the whole education process. But if we think about making that investment, it always starts about creating the problem-solving management, being more strategic, and also to be more analytic, which is less associated to our skill sets as a female. Secondly, it's about the network. Investing in new development opportunities, it will give you the chance to know people, maybe the right people, experts, peers, potential clients. Education is also associated to the increase of salary weights. As much as you hold, some careers will also provide you higher salary ranges. We also have the professional credentials as giving the credibility and legitimating the way you share your knowledge, the way you share your ideas, the way that you share your thoughts within the organization. So that also creates the opportunity for you to develop. And finally, it's about the positive social impact. Women that accomplish their goals are more used to also offer mentor, sponsorship, to also create this pay-it-forward effect. And for organizations, it always increases and creates that culture of fostering development. So seeing a female getting there where she wanted to, accomplishing their goals, it also creates this positive movement within the company, within the teams, within the organizations. So it's definitely a positive win-win. And we, as HR, play a very critical role. We have to remember that it also starts with us and our stakeholders. So if we want to guarantee to close this gap in the future, we have to start within our areas, within our decisions on a daily basis. And it starts with the diverse hiring panels. We have to make sure that for all positions that are opened, we are providing both genders. We have candidates that can be considered for the choice of the manager, the line manager. Some companies are even using very interesting strategies like blind recruitment. When you take it out, the gender or any other information that can be related to a female or a male. And that helps us to reduce the gender bias, to reduce the thought, oh, if I'm going to hire a project lead for something that is going to be super intense in the next 6 months, that cannot be a woman who just had a baby. Secondly, it's about the tolerance for harassment, for discrimination. We have to hold these policies very close to our decision-making in the organization. And when situations happen, we have to make sure that the right action is made, to give the example, to not lose talents for other organizations instead of providing the safe environment for that women to thrive. Because if you don't trust that your HR is going to give the solution for something that happens, at some point you stop using the channel and we start looking for other opportunities. It's about the pay equity, and I think this topic is so interesting because, first of all, we have to ensure that salaries are being balanced when you have a male and a female developing the same role with the same responsibilities. But when you have a budget that is approved for that role, and you have also a professional that has been chosen for that role, and for all the historical reasons that we just shared in the beginning, if we ask for her salary expectations, it's very likely that this value is going to be lower than maybe the budget you have approved, or even the peers that she's going to work on as soon as she starts in the position. So what is the right thing to do here? Is to save the money for the company in the long term and manage the gap later? Or would you offer a higher salary, higher than her expectation, to make sure that we close this gender gap from the beginning? It's about the succession planning. When we're planning to succession roles, we need to make sure that that pool contains gender balance, contains females. And if we cannot trust and we cannot find that ready now, ready soon, or even ready future female professionals that can step up for more complex leadership roles, we need to look back and understand how are we offering development offers to these professionals. How are we supporting these leaders to also coach them, to develop them? And finally, it's about also celebrating these females' roles to make sure that if you have someone who is accomplishing great things, we communicate, we share, we give visibility, we encourage other females to keep believing, to keep moving. When we look to the future, development, it's going to be associating three main building blocks. So the first one is about the ways of working that has already completely changed after pandemic. We are completely hybrid, but we also need to learn how the global management abilities are going to implicate the cross-culture, the cross-functional, all the difference that we have around the world. Otherwise, companies are not going to be able to be sustainable. It's also about our thinking process. Neuroscience is going to be a huge part of the way that we're going to understand our behaviors, our traits, and how we act in a daily basis. But it's also going to be seen the increase of the DEI, of the diversity into the leadership roles. And not only about gender. It's about understanding that consumers want to see the right representation when we talk about board members, when we talk about leadership, so we can think about the right product and the right service. And finally, it's about data analytics. It's about how us as HR use that data to make strategic decisions. It's about embracing artificial intelligence, that it's no way we're going to run from it. It's about embracing this digital transformation. And the only way we can do that is through a growth mindset. Because the test for whether or not you can do a job, it should not be the arrangement of your chromosomes. Thank you.